We've been so blessed over the years to have one of the premier African-American scholars in the nation. He's a history professor and chair at University of Houston. He's a lecturer. He's also on YouTube. Lots and lots of his lectures there. His books are at SO1. I'm talking about Dr. Gerald Horne. And Dr. Horne, I just want to thank you so many times when things go right and you have made yourself available to fill in on the clutch, and it's just been such a benefit to us over the years of being able to learn from your vast store of knowledge. So much appreciation to you, sir.
Well, thank you, and congratulations on 16 years.
Yeah, man. It's 30 years for the show. I've only been here for 16 of them, but it's quite an institution, the front page. Yeah, but a lot of things that have been happening in the world are things that I have been wondering, what would Dr. Horne say about this? One of them is January 6th, because when we talk about history, this domestic terror attack that happened on the United States, the activation of these white supremacist, fascist, Trump-supporting insurrectionists was pretty good. We all saw it on TV, but it looks like Republicans are rewriting history, are trying to rewrite history, and now have many of them who were hiding under their desks or, condemning the president are now changing their tune.
Well, I think we need to realize we're in a very dangerous, perilous moment right now. What I'm trying to suggest is that one of the reasons why certain Republican leaders are changing their tune is because they're trying to cover their tracks. I think if there is an adequate investigation of the events of January 6th, it inevitably will show that there was complicity on the part of a number of Republican members of Congress. We already know that before January 6th, there have been reports about Republican members of Congress giving future insurrectionists tours of the White House, tours of the Capitol,
right,
so that they would know where every nook and cranny could be located. And just look at the flip-flopping of your own California, Kevin McCarthy, the House minority leader, who in the immediate aftermath condemned Mr. Trump, but now is singing a different tune. And I think what that bespeaks is that Mr. Trump has a stranglehold over the GOP. It's like a cult of personality. He can do no wrong. He's the dear leader. And when you get into that territory, you know that there are bad times ahead.
It really is a trip. They're so, they're so like just controlled by this man or his base or whatever it is that's controlling these folks. And Kevin McCarthy is a great example because he is on video calling for a commission to look into this and a censure of the president, the former president. And now he is trying to block exactly what he was calling for. I think so you're saying they're worried about being exposed as criminals and having to face the consequences. Do you think there's also a bit of revisionism going on ahead of the midterm elections?
Well, sure. I mean, it's apparent that the Republican coalition includes fascist-like types, and they feel that even with voter suppression, they will not be able to prevail in November 2022, not to mention November 2024, without this Trump base. And so therefore, the Trump base rules. It reminds me of the role that Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia plays in the Democratic caucus. Now, he's only one vote, but because of this 50-50 split, if he veers away from the Democratic consensus, it gives him more leverage because the Democrats need him for their legislative agenda.
And he's always veering away. I mean, he's like a dino, dem in name only.
Well, sure. And as I said, we're facing a very dangerous and perilous moment right now. I mean, this is not business as usual. We will not easily surmount this present crisis, I'm afraid to say.
And you see, from what I understand, you see the kicking of Liz Cheney out of the party as another sign of this not being business as usual.
Well, sure. Her good friend and comrade, Peggy Noonan, who writes for the Wall Street Journal, suggested that one of the reasons why Liz Cheney was purged and ousted from Republican Party leadership in the House is because she wanted an investigation, that she has reason to suspect that some of her colleagues were in on the deal with regard to January 6th. And recall that Liz Cheney organized that remarkable editorial column that appeared at the Wall Street Journal before January 6th that was co-authored by her dad, Dick Cheney, the former Pentagon chief, and 9 other former Pentagon chiefs, warning the military not to get involved in U.S. domestic politics.
That's right.
So, why do they have to be warned? I mean, I thought that was part of the ABCs of being a military leader, that you don't get involved in domestic politics. And reference that with the recent open letter co-signed by a number of retired military brass, including Admiral John Poindexter, who was implicated in the Iran-Contra scandal under Reagan in the 1980s. They basically signed on to Trump talking points, warning that Biden was leading the country over the cliff towards some sort of, quote, socialism, unquote, saying that he was illegitimate as a president. We are in very dangerous, perilous times right now.
Yeah, I agree. I know I'm always pushing you to give me good news, and there is some, but that's really scary, because what we really were looking at in some respects is also a coup attempt. I mean, people say that less often now, but when you think about the fact that there were so many police and military people that took part in January 6th, and that we still have this problem trying to purge white supremacists from the military, which has turned out to be, even once the, I guess, mainstream media and mainstream government admit that there are white supremacists in the military and infiltrating police forces, it's turned out to be very difficult, I'm putting air quotes around that, to purge these folks, because what they're saying is, well, they have a right to believe what they want to believe. So that means we can just have white supremacists in the military and police departments, and we can't get rid of them once they're there because they have the right to free speech. That seems problematic.
I'm beginning to worry that we're being numbed to this idea of white supremacists in the military and the police. I mean, these videos just keep coming. You saw the one, I'm sure, from New Orleans of Ron Green.
Yeah.
I mean,
it
was astonishing. I mean, and they're coming with such rapidity that I think we're being desensitized.
Yep.
I think we're becoming accustomed to it, which is even more tragic.
Honestly, I don't like watching those videos. And most of the time I'll watch it once because I know I have to watch it for my job, and that's it. I don't watch it over and over again. I don't want to get used to violence against black people. I don't want to get used to our being lynched by police or anybody else. And I honestly wish that some of these news outlets would do a better job of not showing it. And I know it's sensational. Then they say, well, this might be hard to watch. They always say that, but then they play it. And I'm just wondering, would they do that if the people weren't black? You know what I mean? That Green video, it's very angering. It enrages me. It feels like a lynching for sure.
Well, it's interesting that you wonder if they would show these videos if the victims were not black, because that reminds me, there's a phenomenon with regard to National Geographic magazine where they oftentimes, even today, they'll show bare-breasted women if they're black.
Right.
But not otherwise.
Right.
Let me ask you a question. There's been a lot of discourse lately about what's called trauma porn in movies. Lovecraft Country, the Underground Railroad, where there are these remarkable displays of torture and grotesque savagery directed towards black people. Now, there's one school of thought that says, well, this sort of thing happens, so why shouldn't we be exposed to it? There's another school of thought that feels that it's gone overboard. What say you?
Well, to me, it depends on the writer. First of all, they have to be a person of color. They've got preferably black if the violence is against black people. And to me, it has to be explicitly expressing a conscious message. It just can't be there like, oh, this is, National Geographic. It just is what it is. I don't, I think about how people say no more slave movies, and I don't agree with that. How many Holocaust movies have there been? You can't even count them. And there's something positive about never letting people forget. But on the other hand, I can see, that it does. We do have to be mindful of it. To me, they've gone too far with the police videos, the killings, the constant savagery against our people. It's too much, and they're a little too comfortable with it. Your thoughts, Dr. Horne?
Well, that's what I'm beginning to worry with regard to the this documentary footage, like the killing of Ron Green. I mean, it does leave the distinct impression that there is a conscious attempt to desensitize us so that we won't be outraged because we're numb. Now, with regard to fictional projects, Underground Railroad, Lovecraft Country, I'm ambivalent. I have to confess. I'm of two minds. I'm not sure what to think.
Yeah, well, let's think. I mean, and I'm a person that doesn't, I don't like this thing of constantly comparing ourselves to Jewish people or Asian people. I think it's dumb that people are mad that, the Biden administration passed an Asian hate crime bill and hasn't passed the anti-lynching. To be honest with you, yeah, I'd like to see an anti-lynching bill passed. I also like that black farmers are going to be getting billions. So I'll take that over a hate crime bill right now. But I think the way that Jewish Americans have monitored the way that the Holocaust is portrayed in films is actually instructive, because it's not just anything goes. No, you have to be. You don't get to be ahistorical. You don't get to be a Holocaust denier. I don't think you should be able to be an enslavement denier. And I don't think you should be able to be gratuitous and, and be like, what's his name? Quentin Tarantino, just saying the N-word every other line in a movie just because he thinks it makes him seem cool and he can pay Samuel L. Jackson to do it. I'm not down with that.
Well, I certainly agree with you with regard to that latter point. And no, I mean, I think Tarantino has gone overboard.
Yeah,
but
he needs to check himself before he wrecks himself.
There you go. And we're about to reach the May 25th mark with regard to the first anniversary, if you like, of the murder on camera of George Floyd.
Yeah, it's tomorrow.
And yes. And there's a lot of reflection as to how far we have come or have not come during this 1 year. Obviously, in the immediate aftermath, these worldwide demonstrations I thought were remarkable. And I thought it led directly to the conviction of Derek Chauvin, that and the domestic protests and the fact that Keith Ellison, a former member of the Congressional Black Caucus, was the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota, able to marshal resources, expert witnesses, and all the rest for the prosecution. But it seems, certainly with this killing of Ron Green, that I'm not sure we've come as far as some thought we might have arrived after May 25th, 2020.
Yeah, and you're right, and they're so rapid that it's even hard to track them. But I want to urge us to do whatever we can to not get used to seeing ourselves. I remember when I was younger, when I was a kid, news stations wouldn't just show you people getting killed. That was considered, off limits. And now they do it like it's nothing. I think that we need to reverse that a bit. We're talking with Dr. Gerald Horne, but we're always talking with you. Call me, 520-KJLH, 520-5554. I definitely want to get your thoughts about this recall fever that California has. Talking about Gavin Newsom, they're even now launching one against George Gascon even, as we see this progressive prosecutors trend picking up steam nationwide, the petulant California conservatives are trying to undo what we did at the ballot box. I'm going to get Dr. Horne's take on that, and I'd love to hear from you. 520-5554. Add your area code and you're golden. It's the front page. It's Radio Free 102.3 KJLH.